there's hardly a day goes by where I don't involve myself in music in one way or another. And I really do, and it's true. I do a lot of interviews, radios, magazines, and stuff like that. Try to help some musicians. I do. I go to concerts. I play the guitar, and for me, I'm still the same as I always was. Except for the fact that I've got an awareness now. I'm 64. I've got an awareness now that time's getting, shorter. So I have to consider a lot of other things as well. And it gets to be that way, where there's a lot of things I don't do now that I would have done no problem at all. Time consuming, I would have done it, in the past. I've got some guitars that really need some work. It would be fun to have time to be able to strip them down, clean everything up, put them all back. I don't do any of that, as much as I would enjoy doing it, because time is too short now. If it takes half a day to do something like that, maybe more. But there's lots of things, consciously or subconsciously, that creep into your mind thought, and I think that's where I was with the band. I didn't really want to record anymore. I didn't really think that... I thought the legacy of Priest was more than enough to... There's more than enough there to go out, and give to the fans. We could create a new set list every couple of months if we wanted to and go out there. Didn't really want to lock myself in a studio for a few more years because I've done it so many times, and I think that there's nothing more to prove. And I think it gets harder. There's no doubt in my mind it gets harder to reproduce another classic or masterpiece album as time goes on, because you've got such... As time goes on, the more revered and more classic the older stuff becomes, and it becomes even harder to keep up the standard of even the oldest records. Even Judas Priest's first album, if I listen to that, I'm thinking, shit, I wish I could write songs like, if I could write songs like that now and record them with today's everything, it'd be a great album. I'm kind of too jealous of what I've already done and achieved, to try to do it again. It's not that difficult because you were in a different place and in a different time, and decades, move on. And it's hard to put yourself in writing a 70s album or an 80s album, in the year that we are, because we move on, our mindsets go into a different place. Whereas before, in the 60s or 70s, we would write stuff that were more simple, if that's, it's not an unkind word. What I mean, musically, it was more stripped back, but sometimes more is less. So those few notes were very, very meaningful at the time. Would they be now? I don't know. I'm not sure, But when you listen to, let's say, some of the classic, War Pigs, whatever, some classic, Black Sabbath riffs, for example, you could write them at the time and they were powerful, they were big, they were like a killing machine of a riff, and it meant a lot to people. Few notes, but the meaning was strong. It meant that it meant a lot to us out there as youngsters, and music listeners. Would it have the same effect today? I don't know. That's why everything gets more intense, a lot more notes. It doesn't sound like I'm a musician talking about more notes and fewer notes. But in layman's terms, that's kind of the way that I see it, really. And the design is now to create a lot more intense, musically intense pieces to listen to. And it's kind of harder to listen to in a way, and maybe not so meaningful as the simpler riffs, and I'm talking Smoke on the Water, whatever it is. And I'm not, everybody would cite that riff, but it comes on, and it's still as meaningful today. When I first heard Headless Cross, the riff, I went, I love it. I love it. And then I saw the video with Tony Martin, came on the television. I love it, But that simplicity, that was very meaningful. And music is a language, a universal language, of course it is. And it's a big, big social, glue that brings a lot of people together. I mean, I could talk all night about the subject, really, because the thing is, there's a lot of great benefits that the internet has brought in respect to music, and it has, hasn't it? It really has. And the thing is, as much as it's been the downfall of music as we knew it for so long, and the industry, and how difficult it's made things for new bands, to get a leg up and to enter into the industry. But the thing is, it is a saviour in a lot of ways, because it gets music out there that people wouldn't ordinarily see or listen to or experience. And it is kind of, the internet is already possibly a musical museum that people can go to any day or any night and look through the archives, look back through the decades of bands that, at least they can get to see wonderful footage of, that they would never, ever, ever have seen in their lives, most likely. There's a wonderful piece of footage that's just come out of us. I think I said on my website in 1976 at Reading Festival. Somebody took that on a reel and has posted it up there. How wonderful is that for everybody to see? But I myself, I love going back and looking at some great gigs of bands that, that I was a big fan of, Stan Webb, Chicken Shack, playing, a club somewhere in Dortmund, and it's great. You can be at that gig. So thanks to the internet for that and everything about it. But in reality, on the ground, it's tough, obviously, for younger musicians to enter into the industry. And everything, as I was saying before, has got kind of tougher, songwriting and, it's not difficult now to get a great guitar sound. You can pop down to a shop and everybody's got one, so that's great. Equipment's really quite affordable. There's some great stuff on there. Everybody can make some great demos and recordings in their toilet or bedroom. There's lots of good things, but getting the live musician out of the home and onto the stage and onto, a well-recorded CD, for example, has proved to be extremely, extremely difficult. And that is the task ahead for the years to come. And a lot of people probably don't understand or quite get Nostradamus, but it was great for us. It was great for us to express, and to exhibit what we could actually do as musicians. And also it was something original. And I love it. But I know it's the downfall of Nostradamus was probably the one thing that I actually thought, naively, was going to be the best thing about Nostradamus. And that is the fact that I wanted to take people back to how it used to be. Years ago, when you had a big concept album, and you know, like when I first got Electric Ladyland, for example, you know, we used to go in our bedroom, close the curtains, put the headphones on, and just disappear into a world for however longer it took to get through the album and just absorb it and just be at one with it. And I wanted people to experience Nostradamus like that, you know, to take them on a musical landscape, this journey, the whole content, the storyline, the emotions behind the man, and all of that, all of the emotions that we have gone through and people do go through with a life. We as musicians in the recording studio, you know, we'd lived our life, and a lot of those emotions, you know, where people, you know, die, you lose people, you fall in love, you fall out, all of that. So that was very meaningful, you know, to me as an individual, being a part of that whole epic, you know, album. So I still think there's some great riffs, great guitar playing, you know, lots of great ingredients, you know, within that album. And I'm hopeful that eventually, you know, like albums we had released in the past that weren't successful on release, including Painkiller, wasn't an instant success. The first time it came out wasn't an instant success, because Judas Priest, I mean, we'd actually, you know, Scott Travers became on board, so allowed us to do faster, more, and do musical things. It was a bit of a diversification for Judas Priest, and it wasn't an instantly what people warmed to, but as time went on, now people say it's, you know, probably the best Priest album. But I'm hopeful that Nostradamus, at some point, you know, hopefully I'll still be here, to see it enjoy, you know, people to look back at that, revisit, and see what it was all about, really. I think it starts with the band. I think in years to come, if people can actually say who was the band, if you could name one really true blue heavy metal band, you know, that was probably most influential, you know, in look and everything that we did, I would like people to say Judas Priest, because of all of the ingredients with the twin guitar effect, killer vocals, you know. I mean, obviously, you know, great rhythm section, you know, the leather, the studs, the first band to do a lot of things that I think. Obviously, we had a lot of crazy effects and stunts and things that we did, you know, that were pretty dangerous, precarious. But that was it, really. I never wanted to blow up any of my amps or anything. I just wanted to make sure that they were always in good condition. I mean, I was always thinking that let Rob go and do the crazy shit, you know. He's out there with two hands, you know. I'm there with an instrument, and so I'm kind of always having to produce some, you know, some music or you know, holding it together. So I can remember when we opened up for Rainbow, 1981 in Donington. I can remember that they blew half of our speakers up. They were doing some tests, doing something on the stage. But anyway, it was all fixed by the time we went on. But I heard this bang, bang like that, you know, and it was like, God only knows what they did, but it really affected quite a lot of our speakers. The road crew had to replace most of them before we could actually play. They must have just gone like that, you know. I think kind of in an unselfish way, I think having two guitar players in the band, I think that neither myself or Glenn were trying to push ourselves forward as being, you know, a Van Halen or a Hendrix or a Malmsteen, or, you know, that type. We really were proud of, I think, of our songwriting skills. The song's crucially important, and I think that we were proud of all the components that we would put into a song, you know, with trade-off solos and all of that kind of stuff. We did and proudly worked together as a guitar duo, a unit, you know, and I guess that was always our strength. But I think that myself and Glenn, obviously, as time went on, we kept on improving, I believe, as players, you know. I think I'm a better guitar player today than people have ever seen me on a stage. November 2010, I walked off a stage in Japan and haven't been on one since. But I like to think I'm a better guitar player today. I mean, I don't practice all the time. I pick the guitar up, but I'm always learning, and and there's lots to learn. You know, I mean, we've got this thing now with hexatonic scales. Has it always been around? Did I ever hear about it? Don't think so. But recently, I'm aware of hexatonic, and which is essentially a 6-note scale. So a blues scale, for example, could be hexatonic. But I've just found a pretty neat one where you just have you just utilize, well, with a pentatonic scale, if you just utilize the second or ninth note in the pentatonic, gives you 6 notes. It's a pretty neat scale. If you guys want to try it out. So if you're in E minor, you just want to add the F sharp throughout the pentatonic scale. Try it. It does make a big difference just to the just one note. Completely different feel. It's kind of fun. But anyway, am I a bit late catching on with all of the whiz? I'm sure I probably am. But anyway, I've only just made these few discoveries. But there are other hexatonic scales which are pretty neat as well. Hendrix was the main one, my sole inspiration. The first time I saw him, I think in '67, something like that, tour in the UK. A tour went through here with Hendrix was headlining with on the same bill one night was Pink Floyd, and The Move, The Nice, I think, you know, about 6 or 7 bands. But Hendrix headlined, and it was just an incredible experience. And that kind of always, forever, ever stayed with me, you know. I just had an old beat-up acoustic then. I think never thought I'd see myself as a guitar player when I first saw that, but it certainly, as time went on, and I developed as a guitar player, everything that Hendrix brought, brought along was totally everything that inspired me going forward. Because in Hendrix, I actually saw, undoubtedly, everything that Hendrix did had elements of the future in it. There's absolutely no doubt. It was the first time I experienced with my ears something that I could identify as heavy metal today, you know, with the song compositions and the content of the composition. You know, it really, really, obviously, but Hendrix, you know, he inspired an awful lot of guitar players in the world.
When did you get your first line guitar?
The first one was around about 75, is what I think. I actually thought it was earlier than that, but I've recently met up with the guy that actually sold me the guitar in Birmingham, you know, all those years ago, and he reckons it was about 1975. And that was obviously I would say it's my flagship guitar, because it's a 1967, thereabouts. And yeah, I'm extremely proud to be an owner, because I've since found out they made about 111 of those guitars, I think.
How many?
111. I've actually got the Gibson records of the manufacturer. They started manufacturing that one. Obviously, I've become a little bit of a historian, being a V owner all of these years. Obviously, the 58 model, you know, which is obviously very expensive now and well sought after by a lot of people. You know, that production was around about the 500 mark, I believe, you know. As was the Medallion V, the 1970 version, was a run of about 500. But the 67 one, they did less numbers. They started production sometime in 66. I think they made just a few, half a dozen in 66. Throughout 67 is what I learned. And so I was extremely lucky to come across the guitar second-hand in a shop in the middle of Birmingham. Just so happened to spot the guitar. Even then, it was expensive at £500. But immediately, I thought to myself, I really do need this guitar. And there is a story. I've since run into Michael Schenker a few times over the years. And Michael actually made the journey up, I believe, from... I think UFO played in Birmingham, I think on the Sunday. But I think that Michael saw the guitar in the shop. I think something like that. They were playing Birmingham Odeon, I think. And but he came up a couple of days later, you know, with the intention of acquiring the guitar. But I'd been in there the day before, and every time I see Michael, he always goes, KK, you have my guitar. And I go, no, Michael, it's mine. So that's kind of the cute story behind that. Because they were pretty, and still are, rare instruments, of course. But as I say, with that particular instrument, obviously, I now look at old archive photographs and things, and I saw obviously Jimi Hendrix had one. You know, I think Andy Powell had one from Wishbone Ash. Kim Simmons from Savoy Brown. I think Dave Davies from the Kinks. I think Brian Jones might have had one, but I'm not sure. But, you know, selected people probably had the guitars when they were brand new. But it was an acquired taste, I think it's fair to say. Lots of guys picked them up, and suddenly it just seemed just to have that shape just kind of seemed strange to them. But definitely for me, I think that it was definitely something that was unique and something that was futuristic. It was more the future. You know, I think it's like... so it's one of those things like contemporary architecture or, you know, modern art, and, you know, but it is kind of the future, you know. And I think that, to me, it always did epitomise. I probably didn't know at the time that the V was going to become the mainstay, you know, in the metal world. You know, the mainstay design, you know, but certainly has, I think everybody would agree, if there is a metal axe anywhere, it's usually pretty pointed and in a more aggressive. And in actual fact, my guitars became probably more that way over the years, more pointed, just a bit more aggressive looking. I was always thinking there was a way forward to fill a gap that wasn't there, because I felt frustrated. There's a lot of good bands around, and I love listening to them, Sabbath and everybody, but it wasn't really fulfilling everything that was already infused in me from seeing, let's say, Hendrix, and I saw him quite a few times. The elements that he had, musically and visually and everything, that wasn't actually in any other band in the world. And so that's what I was always aspiring to try to achieve. But in my own way, and in the band's own way, in the late 70s, certainly for British Steel, when the look eventually consolidated itself, where all of the band were in leather and studs, and the band was uniform, as a metal band. I think that when that happened, I just wanted to stay there forever. I didn't really want to go anywhere else. I didn't want anything to change. The goal had been achieved, and also, with a lot of the music, the goal, not with every song, not with every album, but it was enough of it there to satisfy me. I think that 76, 77, I started to wear, some leather and studs, but to start with, it was just me and then Rob, and eventually it came about, and when the band had its look, and I don't think that we ever really did the change. Judas Priest never really changed from that. There was no reason to, because it's what people liked, and it's what people copied and followed, a lot of people, which is great. And so with the look and the music and everything, the only thing we had to do was keep writing songs. Keep on writing the songs. The image, the sound, everything was there, the members and everything. So that was the only thing we had to work hard at, really, to stay original, was keep writing the songs. And that's the hardest part, and I feel that now, I think that, and because you can only get so much blood out of a stone, and lots of people might think, and I think about it all the time, bands from my era were with the lucky ones, because we can write riffs like this, but people can't now, because there's been that many variations. It's difficult to songwrite now, especially good, archetypal metal songs.